Dr. Pepper in glass bottles from Waco. Now that was something special. On a hot Texas afternoon, there was a nothing like reaching into a cooler full of ice, pulling out that sweat-covered bottle, and twisting off the cap. That spicy sweet fizz hit different when it came from Waco. It was a treat and a tradition. Whataburger drive-ins used to be the place to be. You'd pull up in your car, click on the headlights to signal, and pretty soon a girl on skates would glide out with your food. Burgers so big you had to hold them with both hands, and onion rings that smelled like pure heaven. Frito pie served in the back. Now that's Texas football in a nutshell. Friday night lights, marching bands, cheerleaders, and a little red bag of Fritos cut open right down the side. They'd ladle in hot chili and cheese, hand you a plastic spoon, and you were in heaven by the third bite. Bluebell ice cream wasn't a big national name back then, no sir. It was a homegrown treasure from Brenham. You'd sit on the porch after supper with a bowl of homemade vanilla, listening to the crickets chirp. It wasn't just dessert, it was a perfect Texas summer night. Tex-Mex from little hole-in-the-wall joints, that's where the real magic happened. The kind of places with flickering neon signs, red booths, and a menu scribbled on a chalkboard. The enchiladas were always sizzling, the beans had bacon grease, and the tortillas were soft and warm like they just came off Grandma's stove. Barbecue pits made from old oil drums sat in backyards like family heirlooms. Someone's uncle had fired up early, smoking brisket low and slow. You could smell it 2 blocks away. And come sundown, folks would start wandering over with paper plates and cold beer. It was more than food. It was a gathering. Sonic had this thing going, roller skating car hops who made every order feel like a show. You'd hit that red button, order your slush or burger, and pretty soon a smiling girl on skates would roll out, balancing the tray like it was nothing. Sometimes she'd dance a little to the song on the radio. Homemade pecan pie from Grandma's kitchen was the crown jewel of every meal. She'd make the crust from scratch, crack the pecans by hand, and pour in that sticky sweet filling like liquid gold. The house smelled like love. You'd eat a slice with a scoop of vanilla ice cream and wish time would stop. Lone Star beer was in just about every man's hand come Saturday night. Those commercials on TV made it look rugged and cool, but the real magic was sipping one on the tailgate while someone strummed a guitar. It wasn't about the beer. It was about being Texan through and through. Chili cook-offs were the big event in every little town come fall. Folks had set up camp downtown with giant pots bubbling over burners, each swearing their chili was the best. Some spicy, some mild, some with beans, some without. Everyone left with a full belly and a story to tell. Dallas Cowboys cheerleaders, boy, they weren't just part of the game, they were the game. White boots, big hair, and those $1,000,000 smiles. They had girls dreaming of tryouts and boys watching the halftime show with more excitement than the touchdowns. They were as much a Texas icon as the team itself. Hee-haw on PBS every weekend was like clockwork. Corny jokes, twangy music, and pretty gals popping out of the cornfield saying, "Hey!" We'd laugh as a family, pass the popcorn, and sing along to the country tunes. Simple, silly fun. Exactly what we needed after a long week. Willie Nelson was starting to grow out his hair, leaving Nashville behind and building something new, outlaw country. We didn't know it yet, but he was changing the music scene forever. His voice carried freedom, heartbreak, and dusty roads. When he sang, it felt like Texas itself was humming along. Austin Country Limits came on quiet at first, just a stage, a band, and a camera. But what came out of that screen was pure soul. You'd hear a new voice, feel goosebumps and know you were witnessing something real. It made Austin the heartbeat of Texas music, right there on your TV. Drive-in theaters dotted the highways like beacons of Friday night fun. You'd pile in the car, blankets in the back, popcorn in a paper sack, and park under the stars. Kids ran around in pajamas, couples cuddled close, and the sound came from a crackly metal speaker hanging on your window. It was magic. Urban cowboy fashion came before the movie ever hit. People were already wearing pearl snap shirts, tight Wrangler jeans, and scuffed up boots. Not because it was cool, but because it was them. You'd walk into a bar, hear the jukebox, and the dance floor would fill with folks who lived it, not just wore it. ZZ Top was buzzing around the Texas airwaves long before MTV caught wind. They were ours. 3 scruffy guys with guitars that sounded like a V8 engine. You'd hear LaGrange playing at every backyard party, and folks would shout, "Turn it up!" They weren't famous yet, but we already knew. Honky-tonk bars had floors covered in sawdust so your boots could glide across as you two-stepped the night away. The music came from a jukebox or a live band in the corner. The air was thick with smoke and perfume, and somewhere in the crowd, Mott Love might be dancing your way. Dallas, the TV show, started out slow, but we were hooked early. J.R. Ewing was the man we loved to hate, and South Fork Ranch felt like just another Texas neighbor. Each week we'd tune in, holler at the screen, and then gossip about it at work like it was real news. George Jones on the AM radio was like hearing your own heartache sung back to you. His voice would crack, your eyes would water, and the static from the station would only make it feel more real. You'd let that old truck coast down the highway, just listening and remembering. The Houston Astrodome was something else back then. They called it the 8th wonder of the world. I remember walking in for the first time, staring up at that big old roof, spotless and bright. Before it got stained and weathered, it felt like stepping into the future, right there in Houston. Texas Instruments calculators started showing up in classrooms, and let me tell you, we thought we were high-tech. Big, clunky buttons, little red numbers blinking back at you. Teachers weren't quite sure how to use them yet, but we all felt smarter just holding one. Friday nights meant high school football, no ifs, ands, or buts. The whole town would shut down to fill those bleachers. Band playing, cheerleaders yelling, and the smell of nachos in the air. It wasn't just a game. It was the heartbeat of Texas every fall. Rodeos at the Fort Worth stockyards weren't some fancy event. They were part of life. You'd hear the announcer over the loudspeakers, smell the dust and livestock, and watch cowboys hang on for 8 wild seconds. Afterwards, folks would two-step under string lights like it was just another Friday night. State fairs had it all, but the butter sculptures, now that was Texas pride. You'd walk into the exhibit hall, feel the cool air, and there they were. Cows, flags, whole scenes, all carved from butter. Kids stared wide-eyed, adults laughed, and everyone left wondering how long that butter would last. Every gas station had a rack of 10-gallon hats just waiting for someone to grab one. Whether you were a real cowboy or just passing through, trying one on felt like a rite of passage. You'd check the mirror and suddenly stand a little taller, a little prouder. Ranch-style homes lined every neighborhood. Low roofs, long driveways, big porches made for sitting. We'd watch the sunset from a lawn chair, dogs sprawled out nearby, iced tea sweating in a mason jar. No need for fences, just space, sky, and neighbors you actually talk to. CB radios made road trips a whole lot more fun. "Breaker 19," we'd say, calling out to truckers like we were part of their world. Handles like Lone Star Jack or Sweet Tea Mama flew back and forth through the static,
making miles feel a little shorter. Piggly Wiggly was where Mama did all the shopping. Those pink pig signs out front, wide aisles, and squeaky carts that always veered left. We'd tag along, begging for bubble gum or cereal with toys inside. It wasn't fancy, but it fed every home in town. "Don't mess with Texas" hadn't become a full-blown slogan yet, but the feeling was already there. You'd see homemade signs along back roads, spray-painted on fences or stenciled on barns. It wasn't about litter, it was about pride. We were tough, and we liked to remind folks of it. Black and white TVs sat like furniture in the living room, big wooden boxes with rabbit ears on top. You'd fiddle with the dial, trying to tune in Channel 8, and once it came in clear, well, that was your Saturday night sorted. Rotary phones clung to kitchen walls like they owned the place. That cord stretched halfway across the room if you tried to walk and talk. Dialing a long-distance number took patience and finger strength. And if someone picked up another line in the house, oh boy, family drama. Etch-a-sketch battles got real serious with cousins around. You'd sit cross-legged on the floor, twisting those little white knobs like your life depended on it. Squares, zigzags, maybe a lopsided cowboy hat, and then one slip, and it was gone. All it took was one shake. Stretch Armstrong was fun, till you left him in the Texas sun. We learned that the hard way. He'd be all gooey and stretchy one minute, the next thing you know, he's a melted mess on the porch. Still, we'd try to fix him with duct tape and dreams. Polaroid cameras came out at every picnic, birthday, or Sunday drive. You'd snap the photo, wave it in the air, and watch it fade into life like magic. There was something about holding that picture in your hand just minutes after taking it. It felt like you were freezing time. Cassette decks were our version of carrying the party. Big old portable players slung over a shoulder, thumping out Waylon, Queen, or whoever you were into that week. We'd sit by the creek, passing around a soda, hitting rewind and play like we were DJs in our own world. Atari showed up and changed everything. Pong, Space Invaders, we were hooked. You'd sit on the shag carpet in a cool den, joystick in hand, hearing that little beep-beep while the screen flickered. Parents said it'd rot our brains, but to us, it was the future. 8 tracks in the family truck would click mid-song, and you'd just keep on singing. The tapes were bulky, the sound was hit or miss, but when that guitar kicked in on a Merle Haggard track, it didn't matter. That music wrapped around you like a familiar hug. Walkie-talkies weren't toys, they were portals to adventure. "Can you hear me?" we'd whisper through the crackle, pretending to be spies or sheriffs on the trail. The range was about 20 feet on a good day, but that didn't stop us from feeling like we were saving the world. Banana seat bicycles were our ticket to freedom. Bright colors, tall flags, and if you were lucky, a playing card clipped to the spokes for that motorcycle sound. We'd race down dirt roads, popping wheelies and skinning knees, feeling like nothing could ever catch us. Cowboy boots with embroidered designs weren't just footwear, they were a statement. Folks strutted into church or the honky-tonk with roses, eagles, and stars stitched right into their boots. Worn-in leather, dusty heels, and that unmistakable click on tile floors. That was pure Texas swagger from heel to toe. Western shirts with pearl snap buttons were the height of cool. Didn't matter if you were going to a dance or just mowing the lawn, you popped those snaps like a gunslinger. Every boy wanted one, every girl noticed, and you always tucked it in just right. Bell-bottoms flared so wide they almost touched both sides of the street. Paired with a fringe jacket, you felt like a rock star or a rebel, or maybe both. The wind would catch those legs as you walked, and for a moment you were flying through the 70s. Leather belts weren't complete unless they had a buckle big enough to reflect the sun. Longhorns, stars, initials, those buckles were like trophies around your waist. Win one at the rodeo or get it for Christmas, it didn't matter. You wore it like armor every dang day. Feathered hair like Farrah Fawcett? Oh, honey, it was the look. Girls all across Texas, especially down in Corpus Christi, lined up at beauty salons just hoping for that perfect flip. One can of Aquanet later, and they were ready to rue the school or the skating rink. Denim vests and patched-up jeans told your story without saying a word. Each patch had a memory, an old fare, a band, a buddy. You didn't buy them pre-ripped back then. You earned those tears riding bikes, climbing fences, and living life loud. Homemade Halloween costumes came from closets, not stores. Moma'd cut up old sheets, cardboard, and aluminum foil. Next thing you know, you're a ghost, a robot, or a cowboy with a crooked paper mustache. Store-bought? That was rare. Homemade had heart. Tough Skins jeans from Sears were built like tanks. Every kid wore them, usually passed down from an older sibling with the knees already half gone. Didn't matter. They had those reinforced patches, and you'd still play tackle football in them without a second thought. Girls wore ribbon barrettes that bounced with every step. Sometimes homemade, sometimes gifted by Grandma. They came in neon, pastels, and every color in between. Braided pigtails with bright ribbons, that was a Texas playground staple, and we still smiled thinking about it. Keep on trucking shirts were everywhere. Big old cartoon feet stretching forward, that laid-back strut printed across tie-dye or heather gray. You wore it with a grin and a little bit of attitude, like nothing could knock you down, not even Texas heat. Metal lunchboxes clanged as we ran to school, each one showing off our favorite cartoon or cowboy. Inside, a bologna sandwich, some chips, and maybe a ding-dong if Mama was feeling generous. That thermos filled with lukewarm Kool-Aid, and we didn't mind one bit. Riding in the back of a pickup truck wasn't dangerous. It was childhood. We'd pile in after church or a trip to Dairy Queen, hanging onto the sides, laughing as the wind whipped through our hair. No seat belts, no worries, just open road and good times. Manual typewriters clacked in schoolrooms like little drum lines. Learning to type meant pushing each key like it owed you money. Then hearing that sharp ding at the end of every line. Whiteout was your best friend, and your pinky's got a real workout. Film development wasn't instant. Heck, it wasn't even fast. You'd drop off that little canister, wait a whole week, then come back hoping Grandma wasn't blinking in the family photo. Those glossy prints, worth every minute. Teachers used real chalk, scratching lessons on the big green boards. That screech still echoes in our ears. And if you were lucky, you got picked to clap the erasers outside. A cloud of dust, a lungful of limey air, and a badge of honor. Newspaper routes meant waking up before the roosters. Kids would load their bikes, papers strapped tight, and ride block to block in the dawn light. Rain, shine, or Texas cold, you got it done. That first paycheck felt like you'd made it. Garden hoses were our version of a water fountain. We'd run wild in the sun, sweaty and barefoot, then lean over, turn that knob, and gulp from the rubbery stream. It tasted like summer, dust, and a hint of hose, but it was the best thing on earth. Soda from a glass bottle vending machine was pure magic. You'd drop in coins, pull that cold bottle out, and pop the cap right there. Grape, root beer, or orange, it didn't matter. That hiss of carbonation and that first fizzy sip was instant happiness. And S&H dream stamps were tucked in drawers, stuck on books, and saved like treasure. You'd lick and stick 'em after every grocery trip, dreaming of what you'd trade 'em for. Maybe a toaster or maybe a fishing pole. Every stamp felt like a step closer to something special. Street lights were the final bell. We'd play all day. Kickball, tag, catching fireflies, and only stop when those lights blinked on. That glow meant it was time to run home, sweaty and breathless, with scraped knees and a full heart. Bluebonnet photos every spring were like a Texas rite of passage. Mamas dressed the kids in their Sunday best, marched them out to the roadside, and posed them right in the middle of those blue blooms. We squinted in the sun, sitting in ant piles, but Lord, those pictures were treasures. The smell of mesquite barbecue floating through the air could stop a man in his tracks. That slow smoke curled through neighborhoods, drifting from backyards or roadside pits. Brisket, sausage, ribs, it didn't matter. If you caught a swift, you'd be pulling over or knocking on a neighbor's gate. German polka festivals in Central Texas were a swirl of accordion music, beer steins, and folks dancing in boots. Towns like Fredericksburg turned into little Bavarias for a weekend. You'd eat schnitzel with your brisket and do the chicken dance like nobody was watching. Oil boom towns shot up overnight. Motels, diners, and makeshift bars full of roughnecks. Folks struck black gold and money flowed, but just as quick, it all dried up. By the next year, tumbleweeds rolled where jacked-up trucks once parked. Texas dreams, wild and short-lived.
Texas Monthly was the magazine everybody left on their coffee table. It told real Texas stories, big, bold, and beautifully written. You'd read about cowboys, criminals, chili cook-offs, and high school heroes. If your town made it in, you felt like you'd hit the big time. Tornado drills meant crouching in the school hallway, hands over your head, heart pounding. You'd glance at your buddy across the row, whispering jokes to break the tension. The wind might not come, but the memory of those linoleum floors never left. Visiting the Alamo was like meeting a legend in person. You'd step out of the car, smell the hot stone and sagebrush, and feel the weight of Texas history. Kids posed for pictures out front, not fully understanding, but knowing it mattered deep down. Floating the Guadalupe River was Texas summer therapy. You'd grab an old inner tube, a cooler full of Big Red, and drift under the cypress trees. Sunburnt noses, rope swings, and slow currents made for stories that lasted long after the river ride ended. Watching the Texas Rangers at Arlington Stadium was a family event. The bleachers were hot, the nachos were soggy, but that crack of the bat under a Texas sunset, magic. You cheered even when they lost, 'cause they were your team. Lonesome Dove reruns on KXAN brought the West back home. Even if you'd seen it before, you'd sit through every minute, watching Gus and Carl ride through dust and danger. Those wide-open plains and slow-talking cowboys felt like home, even from the couch. Wood-paneled station wagons were like land ships. You'd crawl into the very back, no seatbelt in sight, and wave at the cars behind. The vinyl seats burned your legs, the AC barely reached, but man, we went everywhere in those things. Old Ford trucks with gun racks were a common sight in every high school parking lot. They smelled like dirt, sweat, and maybe a whiff of Copenhagen. You'd see a coiled up rope, a cowboy hat on the dash, and maybe a dog riding shotgun. Hitchhikers dotted the back roads like ghosts, thumb out, duffel bag slung low, hair wild. Sometimes you'd stop, sometimes you wouldn't, but every driver had a story about that one time they picked up a stranger heading west or home from nowhere. Route 66 still cut through Amarillo with that dusty, magical glow.
You'd pass neon signs, old diners, and rusty Cadillacs sticking out of the dirt. It was part myth, part reality, but when you were on it, you knew you were driving through something special. Family road trips meant spreading paper maps across the dash. Daddy'd argue with Mama over which turn to take, and you'd be in the back seat trying not to get car sick. GPS? That was Grandma, with her finger on a folded corner of the state map. Gas station attendants came out whistling, rag in hand, pumping your gas while cleaning your windshield. You'd stay in the car, watching the numbers click, smelling that gasoline like it was perfume. They'd even check your oil, like real service used to be. The gas crisis brought lines of cars wrapping around blocks. Tempers flared, horns honked, and folks waited hours just for a few gallons. If your tank was half full, you were lucky. If it was full, you were rich. That red Neil ruled your life. Pickup bids weren't just for tools. They were for cousins. You'd throw in some hay, a couple of blankets, and bounce down the dirt road laughing so hard your stomach hurt. Wind in your face, bugs in your teeth, joy in your soul. Camper vans with psychedelic murals rolled through Texas like mobile dreams. Painted suns, eagles, and starbursts flashed by on highways. Inside, beanbags, lava lamps, and folks chasing freedom. If you saw one, you stared and maybe waved a peace sign. Summer road trips with no AC were a test of character. You'd stick to the seats, roll the windows down, and pray for shade. Hot wind whipped your face and cold drinks warmed in minutes. Still, somehow, those were the best trips of all. Gym class meant running laps, tossing dodgeballs, and that one magical day, pulling out the big, colorful parachute. We'd all grab the edges, lift it high, and dive underneath, laughing like fools in a rainbow cave. It felt like the biggest thing in the world. Film strips were the classroom movies of the day. You'd sit crisscross on the carpet, lights down, waiting for that loud beep that meant the teacher had to click to the next frame. Half the class fell asleep, but it still felt like something special. Book orders came from scholastic catalogs, thin paper brochures full of magic. You'd circle your picks, beg your parents, and wait weeks for that cardboard box to arrive. Nothing beat holding a new book with your name on the slip. Felt like Christmas at school. Assemblies brought local police mascots like Officer Friendly, wearing foam suits and talking about safety. We giggled, clapped, and sometimes got stickers. The cafeteria smelled like mystery meat, and the folding chairs squeaked, but we still showed up for everyone. Yep, corporal punishment was still around. Paddles hung behind the principal's desk, wooden, mean-looking things with holes drilled in them for extra sting. You only needed to hear one story from a buddy to straighten up right quick. Dioramas made from shoeboxes were a school staple. Dinosaurs, battlefields, or the solar system, all built with construction paper, glue, and imagination. They'd sit on desks, lopsided and glitter-covered, but we were proud of them like we'd built the real thing. Cursive handwriting was serious business. You'd trace loops and curls for what felt like hours, the teacher walking by with a red pen. Every cue looked like a number 2, but we tried our best. That lined paper with the dotted center line burned into memory. Each morning, we'd stand, hand over heart, and say the Pledge of Allegiance. Then we'd sing Texas, Our Texas. Voices cracked, and someone always giggled, but it was tradition. That old Lone Star pride started young and stayed with you. Papier-mâché projects were big messes of flour paste and torn up newspapers. We'd mold volcanoes or planets, leave them to dry on the porch, and they never did. They sagged, cracked, and stank to high heaven. Still, we always showed them off on Science Day. The library card was a badge of honor. They'd stamp the due date right onto a little pocket inside the cover.
The smell of old books, the hush of the room, and that thrill of flipping through the card catalog. It was magic before the internet. Fireworks stands popped up along every dusty country road near the 4th of July. Bright red booths, hand-painted signs, and big promises. Black cats, bottle rockets, sparklers galore. Daddy always said no, but somehow we always ended up with a brown paper bag full. Catching fireflies was the highlight of summer nights. You'd run barefoot through the grass, jar in hand, trying to trap a little blinking star. We'd poke holes in the lid and watch 'em glow on the windowsill like nature's nightlight. Jackrabbits and armadillos ruled the highways at night. You'd see their eyes reflecting in the headlights, hear 'em thump under the tires sometimes. Armadillos would freeze like statues, like they owned the road, and in Texas, they kind of did. Tupperware parties weren't just about plastic bowls. They were social events. Mom put on lipstick, served sweet tea, and bragged about lids that really sealed. You'd sneak cookies off the display table while ladies laughed and signed order forms like they were at Neiman Marcus. The Sears Wish Book was a holiday event. It'd land with a thump on the kitchen table, and you'd spend hours circling everything you dreamed of. Toys, bikes, pajamas with feet. Even if you got nothing from it, just flipping those pages felt like magic. The smell of fresh-cut hay at dusk was pure Texas perfume. You'd lean on a fence post, watch the fields turn gold, and feel the coolness settle in. It was a kind of peace you didn't understand as a kid, but never forgot. Thunderstorms weren't scary. They were a show. You'd sit on the porch with Grandpa, listening to the rumble roll in. The sky would flash and the wind would rise, but you felt safe as long as someone was sitting next to you in a rocking chair. Tree houses were built from whatever you could find. Old wood, bent nails, a ladder that creaked. It might lean to a side, but it was yours. You'd carve your initials, stash a flashlight, and hide out all afternoon from chores and sisters. Bigfoot and UFOs? Oh, we talked about 'em. Every cousin had a story. Glowing lights behind the barn, strange prints in the mud, a hairy man seen near the woods. We scared ourselves silly, then begged to sleep with the lights on. Sunday dinners were sacred. The whole extended family packed into Grandma's house, folding chairs, plastic tablecloths, and gravy on everything. By the end, everyone was full, sleepy, and happy. That was real Texas love.